Well, welcome everybody. It's so great to have you all here. This is working, right? Thanks so much guys for your patience. I'm so excited to be here with you all today to check out all of this amazing stuff about the 20th anniversary of LEGO Star Wars. We've obviously got an amazing booth downstairs, as our friend was just telling us about. And if you guys haven't gone to check it out, make sure you do. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I stream LEGO building on Twitch. For those of you who may not know what Twitch is, it's a live streaming platform, so it's kind of like YouTube, but instead of finding pre-recorded content on there, you're gonna find live streams. So you can come and watch people do whatever their passion is, whether that's gaming, art, design. You can see it happen live before your eyes. It's a really awesome opportunity to kind of get a behind the scenes look of how everything comes together with all that awesome stuff. So I personally love building LEGO on there, love sharing my creations with the world. And I'm really, really excited to just get into this panel with you guys. Are you guys ready to meet our special guest for today? If we can have Michael Lee Stockwell join us on the stage. Thank you so much, Michael. Before we dive into things with Michael here, we wanted to share some awesome prizes with you guys. We've got some fun little trivia for you, so that way we can see who's going to be winning these awesome prizes. So our first question is going to be, which ship did we make out of Lego bricks and is currently featured in our booth at Fan Expo Canada? All right, I think I saw our friend right up at the front here first. X-Wing would be, ooh, there we go, that's some audio. X-Wing is also correct.
There you go, sir.
All right, this one's gonna be for the hardcore LEGO Star Wars fans. LEGO Star Wars was the LEGO Group's first IP franchise and was first introduced in February of 1999. In which city did this introduction take place? My friend in the orange shirt? That is correct. It was at the at a New York toy fair. All right, and last one. We want to make sure everyone has a fair chance of getting something awesome. So everybody, take a look under your chair, and someone might find a fun little surprise there. Did we get something? Is that a receipt? That doesn't count. A minifigure, maybe? Did anyone find one? Look around, guys. First one to find it.
Just start flipping chairs.
Did someone find a minifigure yet? Apparently we hit it too well. It is. There we go. Round of applause for our friend there. Amazing.
That's great.
Beautiful. Get him a very special set there, that guy.
Definitely.
All right, we're now going to give Michael an opportunity to tell us a little bit about himself, and we'll get this panel moving along.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. It's great to have a fantastic turnout. Well, yeah, as you know, my name is Michael Lee Stockwell. Many years ago, after I started out as a child playing with Lego like most of you guys did, I grew up in the Windsor area, a small town called Kingsville. And, okay, there you go. Well, I think I recognized early on that I need to find an outlet for my creativity, so I ended up actually coming back to Toronto here and studying jewelry design and goldsmithing at George Brown. So I lived and studied in this city. That sent me off on about a 20-year career as a goldsmith and a jewelry designer, and traveled some and ended up in Denmark and I don't really know what happened, but I wasn't planning it, but I answered a job ad for LEGO, and I got the job, and I actually never looked back. It's just been a great ride.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. Why don't you introduce what today is all focused about? If we move along there, we can get an idea.
There you go. 20 years, as we touched on before, it was in 1999 that LEGO, for the first time, signed an agreement with an external partner, and that was Lucasfilms. So we've been going strong for 20 years, developing product reflecting the content from Lucas and now Lucas Disney. And what we did to try and celebrate this 20 years was we chose 5 sets from that we've done previously. We redid them, tried to upgrade them as best we could. It was difficult to choose 5 sets because we've done so many. Anybody actually know how many we've done? Around 700 sets. And I think over 1,000 minifigures.
That's right.
Yeah. So we've been busy.
Shall we take a look at what those 5 amazing sets look like?
There we go. So we have Dropship with its battle pack with Stormtroopers up in the corner. We've got the Snowspeeder, Podracer, Anakin's Podracer, and then we've got AT-RT Walker, originally done in a Clone Wars version. Now it's a F3 version, and now the Slave 1, which is the model that I worked on. So I'm really proud of it. I think it turned out really well, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the design process and what went into designing that and what we think about when we're working on it.
It's going to be amazing to get some insight on that design process. But we do want to dive in a little bit more on yourself, although I think we want to show off all the awesome minifigures that some of you might recognize from when you were growing up with LEGO.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing to remember with these products, in addition to the figures that come with the product, we have 5 extra minifigures, 1 in each one of those products. And if you notice, they are in their original form, just as they were the launch year. So if they were launched in 2000 or 99 or what it was, some of them have Leia in the set that I did. Yellow face, that's actually the original hair piece that is no longer current. So we went back and revived an old mold. To tell you the honest truth, we had to make a new mold because the old mold had been scrapped just for this piece to make it authentic. So the only difference between these and the original figures is there's a 20th anniversary logo on the back of the figure. Collect them all, and there you go. Yeah. This is the design team, and it's not possible for me to sit up here and talk without mentioning these guys, because these are the guys I work with. And if you have built LEGO Star Wars within the last, 20 years, there's a very, very strong chance that one of these guys, or all of them, have built and designed the products that you're working on. They're my colleagues, and they're all super talented.
Time to get to know a little bit more about Michael. So why don't you start with what you were doing before you got into LEGO, or into the LEGO company, I should say.
Well, like I mentioned, I was working as a goldsmith, and I think that you can wonder why or how you get from goldsmithing or jewelry design to LEGO. I don't know, there's not a direct path, but I think the two things work well together because it's about the interaction to the product, and it's important for us when we design LEGO that we're first and foremost designing a toy for children and for young at heart. So it has to work when you put it in your hands. It's not just something that has to stay up on a shelf. It's not a do not touch product. So when you guys play with it, we want to make sure that you have a great experience.
And what was the first role that you got into at LEGO, and how did your role at LEGO evolve over time? Well,
I started with some creator work, and not long after that moved into Ninjago. That was for the very first wave of Ninjago. And then I was recruited into the Star Wars project. They needed somebody to, what we call, drive the development of the new element production. So every time we do a new hairpiece or helmet or a new creature, that was me driving that process. I wasn't actually doing the sculpting, but I was standing over the shoulder of the sculptor saying, I need a little more there and I need a little more there. And then I'm trying to sell the idea to the engineer who doesn't care about those details, but just wants to make a mold. So that was my responsibility.
That is very awesome. And then I imagine you moved on from there into set design, obviously,
yes.
which is why we have. At the same time. But you were doing that at the same time. Yeah. Okay, so you have multi-roles sometimes. You're responsible for multiple things.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Very cool. So let's dive in and take a look at the original Slave one, because the 20th anniversary set of this, of course, was inspired by the one that came out in 2000. I actually had this one growing up, so I'm very, very fond of the set. And I would love to hear your thoughts as a designer on what makes this set great and, you know, why they may have designed it that way at that time.
Well, I hope you keep that set. I wish I had it.
I still have it.
I think it's actually an awesome set. I mean, look, 165 pieces. And the set that I did now is 1,007 pieces, so it's a big jump. But look at some of the differences. We didn't have the colors that we had then. We didn't have the dark red color, we used brown, we didn't have the correct green color. But still, they did manage to get the wings that rotated, great Boba Fett figure, super model, all in all. And then if we jump on to where we are now. So
quite the evolution here.
A total different scale, of course, but yeah, up to 1,007 pieces. One of the things that I'll talk about later is there's a handle built into the bottom of the model, because anybody knows this ship, it flies in the orientation that you see on the screen there. And we found because kids play with our models during development, found it was difficult for them. So I'll talk about why I did that. There's also spring-loaded shooters that we didn't have back then. Those are integrated in design. So all in all, more playable and more accurate rendition.
One thing I would ask you is, do you have an idea of how many new pieces have joined the LEGO library since maybe like you first started, or do you have an idea of how much that has evolved over time?
Well, what we try and, I think, as far as I know, the circulation number is somewhere around the 8,000 mark. I don't know if that's totally accurate anymore, so don't quote me on that, but I know that what we need to do is we constantly need to delete pieces we're not using very often, because we have to make room for the new ones that are coming in. If it just grows and grows and grows and grows, it just gets out of control. So we're always having to make sacrifices in order to make some new pieces.
Which we made some brand new pieces from this one that we'll be checking out later.
Right.
Awesome piece.
So I'll take you through a quick walk through the process, and when we do a new model in Star Wars, what we need to do is get some reference. Now, when we're talking about a classic ship like Slave 1, sometimes it's really poor photo reference that was taken many, many years ago. Colors aren't always accurate, so we really have to struggle today with them. They have a new updated process. I was in Pinewood Studios in London. They have a room specially designed to photo document the reference, and I can't remember, it was like 115 cameras all pointing at the center of this thing to make sure they get a perfect photo of it, all 3D photo. So this is what I was working from. Old photo images, also screen dumps from the film itself. I started by laying some pieces out on the table just to get an idea what kind of scale we're dealing with and what pieces would I be able to use for the base layer of the ship. And then start adding the next layer, and then till we get the final ship and the layout of it. So that's where I started. Now, this brick was one of the bricks that we used in some of the previous versions. And what was special about this brick is it rises 2 modules and 2 brick heights. And we didn't have anything, well, this is one of those elements we had to delete. So it wasn't in existence anymore, and I needed something for the rear of the ship. I'm gonna go back. The rear, if you look under the tail of the ship, that rises and slopes all different directions at one time and rises quite quickly. And I didn't have anything that was going to do that for me. So that's when we, like you say, we started thinking about developing new elements. And when we do that, we have to look at we always want to try and look into the existing families of LEGO elements. Because what's great about LEGO is that it is a system, and it is a system that works together with your father's or mother's LEGO from their childhood, and we can continue to build on that. So all these elements are what we call generic elements. They're elements that have a tube side that connect and a stud side that allows you to build on and keep working in the system. So I wanted to do something like that, so I came up with the idea of not doing this element, but this is an example of something that's very specific. So we didn't want to go that route. It only works for one thing. So I did this. A left and a right version. You can put it together with existing slopes, and you can build on top of it. So that's what I used into the tail of the ship. in the rear version and also area of the ship, as well as the front version part of the ship. So that's the profile of the ship, and if we add my ship, my work on top of that, that's where we end up.
Who thinks that's pretty dang accurate, am I right?
Now, one of the things, like I mentioned before, we always do a lot of child testing during the development process, because it's really important to us to make sure that the kids, when they're playing with the ship, they have a good experience.
You mean the Lego's not just for me and my building?
Well, like I said before, it's for the young at heart as well.
Indeed, indeed.
So anyway, we have kids in regularly every week for testing. And one of the things we noticed with this was if children knew that the orientation that the Slave One has when it flies, I had built triggers into the back of the ship to fire these missiles. Now, holding the ship with one hand and triggering the missiles with another was a bit of a chore. So one of my colleagues said, well, you know, the original Kenner toy from way back from the film was released, had a handle on the back. So there you see it on the left side. That's the original Kenner toy. So I thought, okay, a handle, that's pretty cool. But I knew I didn't want a handle to be mounted permanently on the back of the ship, because that would be kind of awkward. So I had to try and figure out a way to see if I could integrate it in the design so it could be folded into the back of the model. So there's the handle in use, there's the handle on the back of the ship, and then you can see the way it folds in and out of the ship. So when you're finished holding onto the ship and you set it down onto the table, the handle just disappears. And now,
I just want to comment, that's a really great integration of Technic elements. Technic is kind of a separate theme from some of the regular system stuff, but it's really great and obviously very valuable to be able to make use of that with the system. And again, even though they're two different kind of builds, the fact that they're all part of the same system is what makes them work together so well.
Yeah, and Star Wars is one of the themes that is one of the biggest users of Technic. When we get into these larger scale models, we needed to create the stability that's necessary for the model. Now, to the left, you can see that's the model if you take the skin off of it. That's the structure inside. It doesn't look like much, but if it wasn't built that way, the whole thing would fall apart. And you see there's a lot of technique, and those pins create the strength that's necessary. Now, if you can see, we've got the spring-loaded missiles. You can see the green stripe in the middle. That's the missile loaded in the spring-loaded shooter, and it's pointing upward because it shoots out the top of the Slave One. Over here on the right side, you see the finger on the trigger. So that's where you're actually remotely triggering the missile. Now, if I push this button, you can see the mechanism, the way it's actually working through the Technic build. Now, what made it really challenging was to get all this to work in the area that was most critical for the stability of the whole model. I couldn't just kind of slap it on at the end, so it was quite a challenge. And there's where we ended up. And great figure lineup as well.
Absolutely, and I know we're going to actually be taking a closer look at how some of these minifigures come together, especially with your experience in designing elements like that. Right. We're going to get an awesome look at how LEGO brings about these different designs, because I forget the name of the character, but is our friend in the middle there?
Zuckuss.
Zuckuss.
Yes.
Is a brand new minifigure for this set,
brand
right?
New for this set, yes. He was. We've done now all the classic bounty hunters. Zuckuss was the last one. So in this set, you get Boba Fett, of course. We have 4 Lom, Zuckuss. We have Han Solo and his version in carbonite, and then we have the 20th anniversary Leia figure as well. Now, if we take a look at, like Nick says about the development of the elements, you can see there's the reference for the actual character, and this character was really difficult to get any accurate reference for. But on the left, you'll see this version in clay, and the reason that that minifigure body looks like it's been through a war is because it's been in the oven I don't know how many times, and it's actually 3 times the size of a minifigure. You can see it out to the left, and you can see the minifigure in the middle. And so the sculptor is working with real clay. He bakes the clay, and then he can add on more and keep working and adjusting. And then when we get to a point where we're reasonably confident with the design, then we put it through a 3D scanner, and then we move it into the computer. So here you can see there's a couple of examples of some of the software that we're using when we're designing different types of LEGO elements. On the right, we're doing a free-form type of design with a program called ZBrush. On the left, it's a program called Rhinoceros, and that's more of CAD-based geometric program.
So perhaps something to keep in mind for anyone who's looking to get into LEGO might want to maybe take a look at those programs, get familiar with 3D design.
Yep, that would be a great idea. And so there you have the finished product. What did it end up looking at? Like,
Beautiful minifigure, am I right? And the head itself is not the only new element to appear in this minifigure. There is another one that had appeared somewhat recently in some other sets.
It's not exclusive to this set because it's been out for a little bit, but what's kind of fun is that it came from the Star Wars project, and it's actually the lower body for the figure, and you can see it's a cloak or a dress element, but many of the figures have these long robes on, so we needed something to do that. Now, in the past, if you take a look at our minifigure lineup, there you have the standard minifigure, then you have the minifigure with the mini legs, as you know, then we have the teenage legs, we have the baby, and then when we had the female, it was always like that. Now, I don't want to be chauvinistic, but she's a little tall. So the trouble was that the brick that we were using is just a regular sloped brick 2 modules high, and that's a 1 plate level higher than the minifigure legs. Plus, it didn't have very good connection to the upper body. So we thought, okay, it's about time we make an improvement. So there's the slope we used to use, and there's the element that we developed. And it's got connectors underneath that go into the upper body that are the same type of connectors as the hips do in the standard legs. Yeah. So there you go. Oh, that's the element used for the figure. And then if we line them up again, there's the old one and the new one. So she comes back down to the level of the standard minifigure.
And if you needed to make her taller now, you can just plop a 2x2 plate underneath.
We could do that.
And she can be as tall as she
Or
wants.
skates on her or whatever.
Whatever you like.
Yeah. Yes. Good, and I'll take you through the development of one more element, and if you kind of get the idea now, every time we're doing an element, we're trying to make it fit the system that we work with, and that's the great thing about LEGO. When you dig out any element, it'll fit with what you have, the rest of the stuff in your box. So, we were going to do this figure, and we wanted to do a rendition of this shield that the figure's got in his hands. Now, we could have done a LEGO element that looked spot on exactly like that, but then it really wouldn't look like LEGO. And luckily, we've had a really great long-standing relationship with Lucas Disney, and they allow us to make sure that the LEGO DNA shines through our products. So the element that we came up with is this one. So instead of those really sharp, spiky black things in the corner, they allowed us to do LEGO studs, and it makes perfect sense. It's LEGO. Those studs aren't just randomly placed. If I was to build this and then put that shield in there and then put those plates on there, then I can build on top of it and it fits. Or if I build that, put the shield in, and put that plate, it fits. So everything fits the system. Now, one step farther. How many have built the 75-192, the Millennium Falcon, the UCS? Yeah. If you build that, you have been past this page. There's step 900. You can see up in the left-hand corner, you'll see a white element. That's the shield. It's used as a hinge element to create these two sides on this section that end up being on right and left middle sections of the Falcon. So that's an example of how a shield becomes a building element. And who knows, I know that some people have asked us about fun elements, and during the development of that Millennium Falcon, the designer who was responsible for that, he was having trouble finding the right element for the center of the radar dish. And I said, well, just a minute. So I ran downstairs to our huge inventory of elements, and I came back with the hat from Sensei Wu from Ninjago. Now it was yellow straw color, but as soon as we turned it into gray, it was the perfect element for the center of the radar dish. So there you go.
It's awesome how things come together like that.
Yeah.
I think maybe I would love for you to have your hands on the set and maybe tell us about a couple of your favorite features of it. That way people, when they maybe go out and get to build it, they'll know, hey, this is one of Michael's favorite features.
Yes.
And just to showcase quickly, I had checked out a little review of this guy ahead of time, and one of my favorite things was the fact that the reviewer was able to pick it up right from the tail, and even from just the very end, that Technic really, really shines through to hold this entire structure together. Very, very impressive. So what are some of your favorite things about this model?
Yeah, I can actually comment on that with the strength. Did anybody know that we actually put our models through a heat test process? We put it in an oven and baked them, just to try and simulate the effect that it would have on a model if it's just set in a window in the sun. So we're always trying to make sure the strength is going to be there no matter what conditions the models are played with.
Though I think a fun fact relating to what's on the screen right now, I don't believe that model had fit in that oven, is that right?
That's right. Anybody know where it did fit? Exactly. We have a swimming pool, public swimming pool in the town of Beelum, the only public swimming pool. It's a little town. We had to sneak this model in through the city, and somebody had to babysit it in the sauna while we tested it.
Are they okay? They're all right?
What's that?
Are they okay?
Yeah, they're okay. So here we have the model. I'm just gonna keep that.
Yeah.
Like I said, here's the handle that we talked about. The wings are activated by gravity just like they normally would be. So when the model lands, then the wings level out. Handle's out here, set the model down, handle disappears.
Another nice thing too is that on the inside, the seat also rotates along, so Boba Fett can be seated correctly, right?
See, of course, but when Boba Fett's in there, of course he has to sit actually with his head pointing that way when he's leaning on his back, and then when he sits up like this, he rotates up in the correct position. And as I talked about the triggers on the back, there we go.
Watch those eyes.
So, and then I guess the final feature is that you can stow the carbonite brick with Han Solo in the back on the way to Jabba.
All the features, just very, very well thought out. Pretty awesome model, right guys? So we of course want to remind you that there's an awesome opportunity to get an autograph from Michael at the booth today at 6 p.m. So look for the big LEGO sign on the main floor in the South Building. But finally, we want to end off with some questions with you guys.
Definitely.
All right, I've got my friend who just shot up his hand over there. We'll get one of our lovely ladies here to give us a hand. If you actually want to come up, because I don't believe the microphone will reach over to you, so I'll have you come up to us so that we can have that answer.
Or you can take this one. Yeah.
Come on up. I only got this far.
So I've been collecting Lego since the late 70s when I was a kid. I kept it, the space Lego, and I have the Star Wars since 99. I think the first set was the X-Wing, one of the first sets. So I have that first Slave one, I have the UCS, now I have to get that one. My question is, having used the system for so long and it was very block-oriented or flat piece-oriented, was there at a certain point did you realize you had to have Technic inside to make them sturdy? Like you couldn't just layer blocks on blocks?
I don't know. I think that realization probably came prior to me joining the LEGO group. But it was a natural progression. The first Technic elements actually did have studs on the top. And we actually don't call those elements Technic. We call them system with Technic holes. Pure Technic as we know it has a slightly different dimension, although it does work with the system. But there are no studs or tubes on Technic. But I think that it was just natural when we found out how much stability we could gain by using those elements, it just made sense to fit them into the products that we're developing.
Just one thing I might want to mention on top of that is I know it was extremely important within LEGO, within the family, like the Christiansens and everything like that, always focused on it being a system. So even when they designed something fairly different, they always wanted to make sure it worked with everything else. Do we have another question? I saw my friend's hand over there. Shut up.
So I've heard talk of a 20th anniversary Obi-Wan figure. What will that be coming with?
Well, whenever somebody asks me about things that they've heard about, I have to be really careful because I don't want to reveal any secrets. So if you've heard something about that, I'll just have to say we'll have to wait and see.
Next question, I think we've got a friend at the end there who's gonna come on over.
I'm just gonna talk from here.
That's great.
Thank you.
So I have friends with kids, and their first exposure to Star Wars is LEGO Star Wars. So I'm curious, how do you feel about the fact that your work has been the entryway for younger fans to Star Wars?
You hit the absolute core of the reason I'm here, because that is what does it. I mean, whether it was Star Wars or it wasn't Star Wars, just seeing the joy that these kids and fans get out of playing and building our products, that's everything. And I think it really has been the gateway for many families and children into the Star Wars universe too, because sometimes they've maybe been too young to see the film itself, but yet they start playing with the toy or watching some of the Clone Wars episodes or Rebels or playing some of the games, and they find their way in that way.
Got another question straight ahead.
Yeah. So you've designed quite a bit, or quite a few LEGO sets. Regarding the Slave One, you added the handle to the back to give it more playability. What would you say is the most challenging, maybe your biggest challenge you've ever had when designing a set to maybe make it more playable, or to kind of something you had to work around and took a lot of hours to figure out?
There are a lot of them, and that's always part of the process, because whenever we do a model, and especially if we've done it before, we always start from the beginning. A good example might be back when I did, if I remember the number right, I think it's 9492, which is it's a TIE fighter, a classic TIE fighter. It was the first TIE fighter that had the proper edge detail around the wings. And that was, as far as I'm concerned, quite a advancement in the design. And it took, there's the man. Okay, that took a lot of time to work out something that would work geometrically, with the system that, because we're not allowed to put any stress on the bricks. They have to, because if they're under stress for any length of time, there's a risk that they could break. So we always have to make sure whatever design we do is stress-free. And it took a long time to find that pattern. So that was one of those challenges. And it's still the wing design that we use today. So.
That Lego math is always one of my least favorite things when I'm working on my own builds, because getting those bricks to line up without getting that stress is crazy, crazy difficult. Another question? Let's do my friend with the hat over here.
Hi. How do you decide which movie moments or moments from TV shows to turn into Lego sets?
Great question. That's what we usually do. It starts with an idea, a suggestion, we'll brainstorm. We have a really close collaboration with Lucas Disney, so we're always trying to stay in tune, updated with what's going on in their movie-making process. But if we're looking back at known film content, then we're looking for obviously the most popular scenes. We'll go through what we call a sketch process that it's not sketching with pencil and paper as such, but it's sketching with bricks. So we'll do quick builds of different things. It could be play set ideas. And then we find out, once we've done some of these sketches, which ones appear most appealing. And then we actually, once again, test them with children and put them in front of them. And sometimes the things that we think are going to be really popular, they're not. They're the other ones. So yeah, that's the process.
Let's grab our friend with the red hat on the right.
When you're doing the design process, how much do you work with the actual bricks, and do you work digitally at all using the design software?
For the most part now, we do both. Most designers, there are exceptions, but most designers work with the physical bricks in the initial part of the process, and that's the way I work as well. So my desk looks like every other office desk, with the exception that you've taken a garbage bag full of bricks and dumped it all over my desk. So I have to, every once in a while, dig from my keyboard. But that's the way we work. We work with those bricks, and this model has been through, I would guess, at least 10 different versions before we get to where we are. So once I get to the first version that I think this looks like I might have something here, then I will build it digitally. And by building it digitally, it allows me to do some editing really quickly, color changes or element changes. Lets me get a little closer to the final, and then I'll back and forth all the way through.
All right, we'll take another one. This lovely lady straight ahead.
The Lego Movie 2 really kind of focused on bringing the worlds together. I didn't know Lego Star Wars or maybe like Lego Friends might ever come together. Might see League dolls, like the Forces of Destiny figures, anything like that.
Are you thinking about like Lego Star Wars in a movie format? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, no, just in general, like some sets. You know, like yeah, like I love the Forces. We all love the Forces of Destiny shorts and the Ahsoka, Sabine, Hera, Padme, all of them. Seeing getting more sets of them and their minifigures.
We were really very, very close to launching some product in that way, and I can't even truly remember what it was that ended up stopping us. We do a lot of work that never actually makes the cut. Yeah, tons of it actually. So I can't say for sure that we'll never revisit that, but for the time being, there are no plans for doing that.
This is going to be our last question. Do you want to pick, Michael? I've been picking all the people.
Guy way in the back.
From start to finish, roughly how long is it from like initial idea to it's going to be released, put on the shelf?
Good question, and that also has a lot to do with the scale of the model. Something in this size, I would say we normally have about 3 months that we're working. So back and forth, developing, testing. Sometimes it'll also be taken to externally to testing if we're dealing with new product. We're having we want some input on actually select. One of the challenges is to actually, like I was just mentioning, choose what are we actually going to put in the assortment. And again, we often get fooled, and we take it into put it in front of kids, and they help us find our way.
Just to add on that quickly, smallest set, the smallest set that you've seen, what was the shortest timeline from start of design to this is going to be a set?
I remember actually when we were working on one of the products for Force Awakens, when we were done, the product was finished, and then reference change came in last minute. 3 of us spent the weekend redesigning that ship. And then we had a test set up on Monday morning with some kids to make sure that we weren't making any mistakes. So when you have to, you can move fast, but it's not a process that we try to repeat.
Awesome. Well, that's going to be it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Can we get a round of applause for Michael?